Kimmel won this battle. We've all seen that now. There are still some problems in the wider war. Activists do view the huge American pressure on Disney as a playbook for a range of future Trump clashes, which can go beyond free speech. But to begin our special report right now, remember, here's how it went down.
ABC has just announced that they are pulling late-night host Jimmy Kimmel's show off the air indefinitely.
These companies can find ways to change conduct, to take action, frankly, on Kimmel, or there's going to be additional work for the FCC.
All they do is hit Trump. They're licensed. They're not allowed to do that.
The recent increase in searches for the phrase "cancel Disney Plus" since ABC suspended Kimmel's show.
People spoke with their pocketbooks. They canceled Disney Plus and their Hulu subscriptions. All of it contributed to the fact that after only 6 days after being suspended, Jimmy Kimmel is returning to the airwaves.
This show is not important. What is important is that we get to live in a country that allows us to have a show like this.
Many agreed. Kimmel is back because people stood up, and that made Disney respond. Of course, this began with Disney as a company that was clearly most worried about the U.S. government hurting its bottom line. And then, because of you and the people, Disney quickly found it was actually even more worried about its customers. Now remember, the richest, most powerful companies in the U.S. usually are quite rich and powerful because they operate in many different places. And those different countries have different laws and different systems of government. So when we hear that term, multinational companies, it's not just a description of where they operate. It's also a description of the different ways they have to operate. Because a company that wants to operate in China and the U.S. and Canada is going to have some different policies. On the business side, they tend to defend that. But what we just lived through in America shows the sad limits of that kind of capitalist approach. Now, Americans may not see this very much when it happens abroad, but many of these companies already have long histories of accommodating all kinds of autocratic leaders who have very different demands than, say, going to Canada and just running a theme park and paying your taxes. Russia and China are a little different. And that means we already know that these companies in the U.S. that are now facing more free speech and autocratic pressure under Trump than they did previously already know how and sometimes do undercut the values of free expression and the rule of law. They claim to follow them, of course, and some of them do more than others. But when you go abroad, it's pretty clear. Disney was not new to the process of quickly bending to a government demand if they thought that the leader was quite serious about making them do it or paying for it. Indeed, for the powerful government of China, it has previously altered and censored films to ensure its position there. It's also made deals under duress. It had the blockbuster Mulan, which led to a deal with the autocratic, no-democracy Chinese government, where Disney took the government's push to also get the rights to 2 Chinese films and open a theme park as part of the deal to stream that movie at all. Other companies have changed or censored references to Taiwan because the Chinese government wants to exert control over what people in and near China think and hear about Taiwan and its quest for more autonomy. Take Apple. Just last year, it pulled WhatsApp and Threads from the China App Store. That was under a government order. Apple would say they have to follow law in China, just like they have to follow law in the U.S. But that certainly is different from supporting free expression. Or Putin plays tough. Google and Apple also removed a voting app that was associated with the opposition against Putin in 2021. These are companies that want to operate everywhere. And again, to be clear and fair, some of them say, they would argue, it's better in many of these countries to have some tech and some Western media than none. But the point is, as we become more like a country that wants to censor or have the government decide what you can see on TV, as a guest put it tonight, these companies have some experience doing this for years.
Companies fear there is a lot of money left to lose when it comes to China. Marriott Hotels firing an hourly employee just for liking a tweet about free Tibet.
Google and Apple blocked Russians from downloading the main opposition party's app.
A voting app that's linked to Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny.
Really big, rich, powerful American companies But in this case, they are doing the work of the Putin government to shut down the political opposition in Russia.
That is how it has worked. And so for people inside the U.S. who were somewhat surprised, angry, outraged that Disney, a company that says it is about free expression, that owns a big news organization, that does fund and release a lot of art and expression and comedy and criticism, people were surprised to see Disney do it. And that may be because they were thinking of U.S. Disney or U.S. Disney pre-MAGA. But Disney abroad, Disney in China, Disney in Russia, tech companies in Russia, that might feel a little different. And for those following, it's not new.
Your countries are going to hell.
And they don't come back and say, that was insane. Did you hear what the president did? That's what we need from the newscasters. But they kick you right out. Terry Moran, Jim Acosta, see ya. Wouldn't want to be ya. You dare stand up to the Fuhrer? You bet your ass you do. And if you don't stand up now, we're going to be like Nazi Germany.
Well, you led the charge this week over Jimmy Kimmel. You're one of the people who helped lead the charge. What were the private conversations about people's fear in standing up for Jimmy Kimmel?
I didn't have any because I just did what I thought was right. I'm not friends with Jimmy in that way. We've texted and he texted me, thank you. And I texted him back, sue them, you'll win. And, I don't rally the troops to decide what to say. I follow my gut and my instinct and my research. Listen, I grew up in New York. If you own a restaurant in New York, there's going to come a time when some guys in bad-fitting suits, like Sopranos, come in and try to hit you up in the neighborhood for some money. And if you pay them, they own you. And then they start using it as a place to have dinners and not be charged and eat for free, and you go bankrupt. Once Trump said to CBS, you will pay me for this. And they did. They owned CBS. And they got rid of Stephen Colbert. And then he said, watch me do this at ABC. And ABC, which would have won that case in court, capitulates to him. That is just as bad as a mob boss coming into your little Italian family-owned restaurant. That's who he is. That's how he works. That's what he does.
Do you think the country understands that in a way they didn't understand it 2 weeks ago? No.
I think, ignorance is bliss, they say, and some people are unwilling to look at the truth. And in their mind, I'm a villain, and I understand that. I get it. Okay. And when you're ready to wake up, we're going to say, welcome back. We're not going to say, screw you. This is all your fault.
Do you think that you'll come back? Do you think it ends? How do you think it ends?
Hopefully, when he's gone and he's an elderly man, and if your grandfather was that age and came to Thanksgiving, you wouldn't let him use the electric knife. And this
or walk your dog. I mean,
never mind if he said half the things that Trump is saying, you would put him in a place to help people who are in dementia. When you watch that UN speech, in the same way we knew watching Joe Biden at that debate, the man was not cognitively present in the way he used to be. The same is true for Donald Trump. And we have willful blindness in the country. We have people who are unwilling, unable to see him for who he is. And it might be too late to save the nation from him. It's hard for me to believe that this uneducated, racist buffoon is the president of the United States. And
for the first time last night, Sinclair and Nexstar's ABC affiliates started re-airing Jimmy Kimmel's late night show. Both companies had refused to air the program after ABC ended Kimmel's suspension earlier this week. The controversy has reignited a debate over free speech. Senate Majority Leader John Thune told CNN's Dana Bash that he believes the FCC should not use its power in a coercive way when it comes to the First Amendment. But he stopped short of saying the Trump administration did something wrong. So for more on this, let's bring in Eric Deggans. He's a TV and media critic for NPR. Good morning, Eric. Thanks for joining us so early. So I want to talk about Kimmel's opening monologue when he came back on the air. He said, "This show is not important. What is important is that we get to live in a country that allows us to have a show like this." So whether the president intended this or not, this has become a free speech issue, and it's pinged both sides of the aisle very sharply. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think this this conflict, this controversy, wound up exposing a lot of different issues in politics and in broadcasting. First of all, of course, we had the First Amendment concerns when an FCC chairman goes on a podcast, threatens the broadcast licenses of ABC affiliates, and then Disney acts to remove the person that was being criticized from the air for nearly a week.
I don't think we really appreciated just how big Kimmel's win was, because it was obviously a bit of a triumph that he got back on air, and he got back on air so quickly, and he got back on air without having to do what the right-wingers wanted him to do, right? They said they wanted a public apology. They basically wanted him to grovel, and they wanted him to even cut a check to like right-wing organizations, basically saying, we need you to pay like an apology bribe, basically, to like right-wing like think tanks, like Turning Point and all that. And if you do that, maybe we'll put you back on air. Well, of course, Kimmel didn't do that. Didn't look like he was going to do that, but didn't have to, because he was back within a week, right? He was only gone for about a week, and that included a weekend where he doesn't normally air anyway. So how many episodes did he miss? 3, 4 episodes? I don't know, 2, 3? Like, it wasn't much. And then it kind of looked like there was going to be a bit of a semi victory for him. Not a full victory, because a lot of the right-wing channels weren't going to air him, right? Like, so that he was back on ABC, and he was going to be back on many of the affiliates, but the ones owned by the kind of right-leaning, like, you know, conglomerates of channels, because every ABC affiliate is owned by is owned separately, but a bunch of them are owned by one group, and a bunch of them are owned by another group, and some are owned by individual, like, are owned on their own, and the right-wing ones were saying, we're not going to bring him back. Well, it turns out that fell apart too, and I think he's essentially back everywhere he was before. And this really is bad news for Trump, and he's lashing out because of it, because he knows that this was a big defeat. It was a big defeat for his fear-mongering, and it was a big defeat for his strategy, because now he doesn't even get plausible deniability. But the thing is, Trump's guy said we could do this the easy way or the hard way. There was, at the very least, semi-direct pressure from the Trump administration on ABC and Disney and what have you, and affiliates, to pull Kimmel. It was direct state pressure to censor, and a threat to use official censorship if like it got to that point. And so when it failed, it was a direct loss for Trump, especially because he went on his social media and said, I basically helped this happen, and I'm super proud, and I'm not done. Others are next after. Like, I got Colbert, then I got Jimmy, and then now others are next, right? And so with this failure, he's lashing out, trying to sue people and everything, because he knows that like a bully in the schoolyard, when the first kid fights back and pushes back, that's the end of your reign of terror.